We are live. We are live. Welcome to Medical Monday. I'm Dr. Frita, and it's time for you to hear the hot health headlines in the news. Boy, do we have a show for you today. I'm not even kidding around. We'll start off with my favorite game, myth versus fact. But what I'm about to tell you, there's no games about it at all. Anne Burrell, who is a celebrity Food Network star, was found passed away in her shower. Initially, they thought that the cause of death was cardiac arrest. And so we'll talk about that in myth versus fact. Cardiac arrest versus heart attack. What's the difference? Is there a difference? And then I'll key you in on some updates on the actual cause of her no longer being alive. And then we'll get into the weekly dose where I'll give you a fresh take on medicine in the headlines you simply can't get anywhere else. We'll start off with R. Kelly. R. Kelly, we know he's largely been canceled, but it looks like, according to his team, that the prison workers were trying to cancel him for real. He thinks that he was overdosed on purpose. According to his team, he was given an overdose on purpose. And he had been complaining of leg swelling, which, according to his team, the leg swelling was ignored. And he was actually diagnosed with blood clots, which can be fatal. And so we'll talk about the very important emergency warning signs of overdose, as well as blood clots. And we'll bring it on in with R. Kelly. And then we will talk about a few more really good stories. Not always so happy, but always with great teaching points. We'll talk about the 31-year-old beautiful Black registered nurse who was brain dead and pregnant. Well, we covered her story here before. Now she had an emergency C-section and she actually gave birth to a 1 pound, 13-ounce son. What we'll do today is we'll talk about that case. I want to get your opinion. And from a teaching standpoint, I'll give you the definition. What does it really mean to be brain dead? And then we'll talk about another story with a bit of a spin, the Diddy trial. You know, we're covering the Diddy trial, Sean Diddy Combs. Well, the trial had to have a bit of a pause because one of the jurors called out with vertigo. Vertigo, well, we'll talk about what it is, the signs and symptoms. And is it really something that should make you call out from work? Oh, we'll talk about it. Lastly, we'll talk about Eric Dane, the actor who has been diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. So we'll talk about that, some of the signs and symptoms and implications. Then, of course, we'll do a 5-minute health check where I'll give you a quick run on things you need to know about recalls and data. And of course, this is a live interaction. I'm Dr. Frita. We'll get a chance you can ask me questions, but I'm asking you questions too. So let's go ahead and get started. And we have this great show. I'm Dr. Frita. This is Medical Monday. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita. Welcome to Medical Monday, where we are going to just give you so much great evidence-based information on all of the hot health topics in the headlines. Calling Shador, my practice manager, and of course, my co-host. How are you doing, Shador?
Doing good, Dr. Frita. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty great. Did you have a good weekend, I hope?
I had a good weekend staying cool out of the sun, but I think you had fun in the sun this weekend.
I had fun in the sun, and the sun was sunning. I went with my cousin, Nurse Dawn, my bestie cousin, and we went paddleboarding, which I had never done before. So we went out to a lake. It was so much fun. We had a little cookout. Her kids were there, my kids, her nephew, who's my little cousin, and we just had a good time out there paddleboarding. Now, of course, it was on a freshwater lake, and so you know me, Shador. I started thinking about, freshwater lake. And you remember we reported on that brain-eating amoeba, okay, that has like over a 97% fatality. So, of course, I had to warn everybody about that. But much to my surprise, I don't know, I shouldn't have been surprised, my little cousin, Miss Dallas, who is a little brainiac, told me more about the brain-eating amoeba than I could tell everybody else. And she was like, oh, yes, well, as long as you don't shuffle your feet by the shore and you go out into the mainstay and just make sure you don't breathe the amoeba into your nose, you should be fine. I was like, how do you know that? She's a little young 20-something who just graduated, summa cum laude. Thank you very much. And she was like, oh, I did a project on it. And so that was how I tried to take the fun out of the sun, but we had a really good time. But it was a no formal basketball weekend. Good. All right. Well, Shador, we've got some very important stories today. Shall we go ahead and get started?
Let's get started.
But who was the first one in the chat, Shador?
First one in the chat today is purple onion.
Purple onion. Oh, what a wonderful food, onions. They have so many antioxidants and phytochemicals. Welcome, purple onion. Thank you for coming
And
back.
shout out to new member, Bryant.
Hi, welcome, Brian. Thank you for joining. Listen, if you go to your members only tab, which now you have your members only link, you'll see where this weekend I did a members only video because I was on Good Day Atlanta. Okay. Our show, Good Day Atlanta on Fox 5 Atlanta. And I was talking about the health headlines. I was doing my segment, Health Headlines with Dr. Frita. I'll be posting that probably tomorrow, but as soon as I gave y'all a quick little insight. So that's for members only. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you. All right, let's get this thing started. What's that?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Let's get this thing started with myth versus fact. So the first story, Shador, is pretty sad. We have Anne Burrell, who is a celebrity, very well known, very outspoken on the Food Network. And she was a host of one of these shows, like Worst Cooks. And I know she was not scheduled to come back next season, but she'd also start doing some other things with her career. Apparently, she was very funny and started doing improv. At any rate, she was quite beloved, but she was found this past Tuesday morning unalive. Now, initially, they thought that she may have passed away from cardiac arrest. And so we'll do our myth versus fact segment on cardiac arrest versus heart attack, but then I'll give you some updates. Let's go ahead and play that initial clip of when they first found out about Anne Burrell passing away.
All right.
A death from television's culinary world. Here's George Pinocchio to fill us in. George.
Well, this is a lady a lot of people really loved. Fan favorite celebrity TV chef Anne Burrell has died at her home in Brooklyn. She was just 55.
Is that gorgeous or what?
Burrell was known for her feisty personality and for her strong, professionally trained cooking chops. After mastering her trade in restaurants, she made her way to the Food Network, where she became a television staple as a host, a mentor, and a judge. In a statement, her family said, Anne's light radiated far beyond those she knew, touching millions across the world. Her warmth, spirit, and boundless love remain eternal.
Yeah, that's really sad. 55 years old and found down. So as I mentioned, initially the thoughts were that it was cardiac arrest. We're getting more information now. But for my good folks in the chat, my med heads, and to everyone on IG, everyone on Facebook, and of course to my replay crew, please go ahead and give us a like and a follow or a subscribe as you come on in here. And we'll start off with a myth versus fact so that we can take what's happened as a learning point. So we'll talk about cardiac arrest versus heart attacks. All right, let's go. What's our myth versus fact statement number 1, please?
Statement 1, cardiac arrest and a heart attack are essentially the same thing, just different terms for when the heart has a major problem.
All right, put an M1 if that's a myth. Put an F1 if that sounds pretty good to you, if it's a fact. Are cardiac arrest and heart attacks basically the same thing? And y'all know I like to try to trick you. All right, let's do myth versus fact statement number 2.
Cardiac arrest and heart attack are completely unrelated.
Okay, M2 if that's a myth, F2 if that's a fact. Are they completely unrelated? M2 if that's a myth, F2 if that's a fact. All right, pencils down. And as we go over the myth versus fact, I want you all to put in some warning signs and symptoms of a heart attack, and I'll share with you the warning signs and symptoms of cardiac arrest. All right, for the first statement, Shador, what do we have? Who participated in my little game?
Not a participation. Statement 1, again, cardiac arrest and a heart attack are essentially the same thing, excuse me, and just different terms for when the heart has a major problem. So with this one, we have, I think, a mix.
Okay.
Lisa, hello.
Hi, Lisa.
Lisa says a myth.
A myth. She's saying that they're not the same thing. All right, Lisa.
Our new member chiming in, Bryant says F is a fact.
Bryant, you think they're the same thing, interchangeable words. All right.
Sanjay from Facebook.
Hi,
sends a myth.
Sanjay. Welcome from Facebook.
Sanjay says myth.
A myth. You think they're separate things. Okay, Sanjay.
Miss Flora, hello.
Hi, Miss Flora.
She said it is a fact.
A fact. They're the same thing. Okay, interchangeable terms.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I love it when we have a mixed bag, not just because I like to be tricky little Rumpelstiltskin and trick you, but it lets me know that there's a point for learning, right? That means it's not common knowledge. All right. So cardiac arrest and heart attack are essentially the same thing. That is a myth. It's actually a myth. Lisa, Sanjay, you got it right. And we'll go into the differences because let's do the myth versus fact statement number 2. And we'll go over the nuances because I understand why people answered it the other way. All right, let's go for myth versus fact statement number 2.
Cardiac arrest and heart attack are completely unrelated.
All right.
On this one as well. VE, hello.
Hi, VE. Welcome back.
He says a myth.
A myth. So you think they're related. Okay, they're interchangeable. Okay, not necessarily interchangeable, but you think they're related. Okay, VE.
Sheree, hello.
Hi, Sheree. Welcome back. Oh, myth. What did Sheree say?
Myth.
You think it's a myth. Okay.
Yes. Choctaw.
Hi, Choctown.
Says it's a fact.
It's a fact that they're completely unrelated. Okay.
Daniel from Facebook saying it's a fact as well.
That they're completely unrelated. Welcome, Daniel.
And one more here. Shar says it is a fact.
A fact that they're completely unrelated. Okay. Drum roll. This is a myth. They actually are related. So I know this is tricky, but once I finish, you will understand. So cardiac arrest and heart attack, they are two separate things. However, they can be related. So let me explain. Cardiac arrest and heart attack. When you have a heart attack, there is a blockage of blood flow to the heart. And so you get death of heart muscle, okay? Heart attack, myocardial infarction, heart muscle death, okay? So that is what a heart attack is, a blockage of blood flow. For cardiac arrest, there is a malfunction in the electricity of the heart, okay? So it's not about the blood flow when we're talking about cardiac arrest. There is a malfunction in the electricity. Here's where it gets tricky. A heart attack can lead to cardiac arrest, but you can have a cardiac arrest and not have a heart attack, and you can have a heart attack and not have cardiac arrest. Mm-hmm. So let me just explain a little bit more. So we already mentioned that with the heart attack, so the blood flow is blocked, and so you get death of the heart muscle. Well, once you get death of that heart muscle, it can affect the electricity within that muscle, and it can lead to cardiac arrest in some cases, not all, but in some cases, okay? And by that same token, some people who have had a cardiac arrest has been due to the heart attack. But here's one of the big ways to tell a difference. The warning signs and symptoms, they're very much different in heart attacks versus cardiac arrest. So meanwhile, do we have anyone who dropped in any signs and symptoms?
Yes, we do.
Okay, what do we have?
Tara.
Hi, Tara.
That's jaw pain.
Jaw pain. Absolutely, that's one of them. And here's a big key, Tara. Jaw pain is one of them. And there are many other warning signs, warning symptoms in a heart attack. But the reason I didn't ask you about warning signs and symptoms in cardiac arrest is because generally there are none, right? When you have cardiac arrest, it's sudden, you drop, you're unconscious, you're not breathing. So there's not a whole lot of time to be like, oh, call 911. Oh, I'm having jaw pain, because in cardiac arrest, it's sudden. So that's a major difference. Heart attack, you might have some warning signs and symptoms that we're talking about. You don't get them in cardiac arrest. I'm sorry, heart attack, warning signs and symptoms. Cardiac arrest is sudden. And again, heart attack, blockage in blood flow. Cardiac arrest, malfunction in electricity. All right, but good work, Tara. Who else?
Sanjay.
Hi, Sanjay.
That's chest pain.
Absolutely. And not just a little bit of chest pain, like indigestion. We're talking crushing chest pain, like an elephant sitting on your chest. Although some patients will have indigestion, and that really will be the chest pain that is a heart attack. So you really have to pay attention. Good.
Paula says earache.
Earache. Now, that's not a common one, but you could get jaw pain that's radiating to the ear. So it's a possibility.
Lisa says pain in the arm.
Absolutely. And classically, we talk about left arm pain, left jaw, neck pain. But honestly, it could be on either side. It could be bilateral, but that's a good one. And all of these, we're talking about the warning signs and symptoms of a heart attack. Because remember, cardiac arrest, boom, is sudden. You're not getting these warning signs and symptoms. Okay.
All right. She chosen along with chest pain says sweating and dizziness.
Absolutely. You can get sweating, also called diaphoresis. You can get lightheadedness, dizziness as a warning for a heart attack. Welcome back, T. Chosen.
All right. Burn. Hi, Burn.
Hi, Burn.
Burn says chest pressure for women can have stomach discomfort.
Good point. And see, that's exactly what I was talking about. Very good. And you bring up a great point. Sometimes women can have atypical signs, or oftentimes women will ignore the signs. But yes, something that just feels like stomach discomfort, indigestion actually can be a warning symptom for a heart attack. The key is, especially if you have more than one thing, if you have indigestion warning, a stomach issue by itself, perhaps that's not a heart attack. Could be, but maybe not. But if you notice the stomach pain gets worse with exertion, when you go up the stairs, when you walk a couple of blocks, plus you have sweating, plus you have jaw pain, right? Plus you have weakness, perhaps some shortness of breath. All of these things together should make you think this might be a heart attack. And heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States. And so you don't want to sit around and wait and talk yourself out of it. Please go ahead and call 911. So those are good warning signs and symptoms of a heart attack. All right. Any more as we get ready to move? And I'll talk more about cardiac arrest.
Yeah, Lisa added one more.
Hi, Lisa.
Pain in back.
Which one?
Pain in the back.
Absolutely. You can get some radiating pain to the back. That can be with a heart attack. Also, that could be if you have an aortic dissection, the hugest artery in your body. If you have usually with really high blood pressure and the blood starts dissecting into the wall and splitting it, back pain can happen with this. And get this, sometimes even gallbladder disease, you can get back pain or shoulder pain, referred pain. But yes, definitely with a heart attack, you could get back pain. So that's a good one to bring up. Okay, so those are the heart attacks, warning signs and symptoms. And again, it's blockage in blood vessels. Now, let's get back to this cardiac arrest where there's an electricity problem. With the cardiac arrest, we're talking about sudden. The heart stops, or it stops giving you an effective rhythm, and you can go into an abnormal rhythm like VTach or ventricular tachycardia. And this can happen for many reasons. We already said that a heart attack, once it causes the muscles to die in the heart, then that can cause an electricity problems where those dead muscles are. But other causes of heart attack can be commotio cordis. Do y'all remember that term, commotio cordis? It's back when Damar Hamlin, young man, got hit right where your heart is, okay, during a football game, and he passed out right away, okay? That was cardiac arrest. You didn't notice him doing a whole lot of walking around. Oh, no, my chest hurts. Oh, my pain. No, sudden, no warning sign, okay? So that's cardiac arrest. Very different. His blood vessels were intact. That was an electrical problem. Okay. And with commotio cordis, listen, make sure that after you finish this live, check out my playlist on YouTube where I have television appearances. Or if you go to Dr. Frita Damar Hamlin, then you will see where as soon as that happened, okay, during that game, the very next morning, I was called to do a national news show expert commentary where I talked all about it. So you can get more details there. Other things that can cause it, if you have congenital heart disease, like LeBron James, they shared their son, Bronny James. Remember, he had a cardiac arrest and dropped while playing basketball. Again, no warning signs. It was an electrical problem. And they said that he had a congenital heart problem. I don't know if they revealed what it was specifically, but they've really been advocates for heart disease. But by congenital, something you're born with. And there are other congenital things that can do it, like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, where you get a really thick muscle in the heart, or you can have Brugada syndrome, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. There's a bunch of syndromes that you can get that will cause you to have sudden cardiac death. You can be at high risk if you have congestive heart failure for cardiac arrest, like if the heart is stretched out and it's not pumping strongly. So there's all kinds of things. But bottom line, heart attack and cardiac arrest, two different things, but they can be interrelated. A heart attack can lead to a cardiac arrest, but you can have a heart attack you can have a heart attack and no cardiac arrest, just like you can have a cardiac arrest and no heart attack. After you finish watching this live, go check out my video. I do a full video on cardiac arrest versus heart attack, and it makes it nice and clear. But as it turns out, yes, initially they thought with Anne Burrell, it might have been cardiac arrest. That's how they reported it. But now we've had some updates. Let's play that clip really quickly on an update on what we think it may be for Anne Burrell. We don't know yet for sure.
Food Network star Anne Burrell's death is now being investigated as a possible drug overdose. The source says the 55-year-old was discovered unconscious and unresponsive in the shower of her Brooklyn home on Tuesday morning, surrounded by about 100 different pills. Medics pronounced her dead at the scene. An initial autopsy was inconclusive. Her cause of death pending further testing.
All right. So it looks like she may have had an overdose. Once we get the final report, then we'll talk about that. Because overdose is something that's quite prevalent, even among celebrities, even among people who have it all, and we don't know. And if she did have an overdose, we don't know if it was purposeful, accidental. So I'll hold off before reporting on that. But I do want to talk about overdose, Shador, in this next story. As we get into this next story, please, y'all, give us a nice little like. It's a nice free way to support the channel, and make sure that you share. Let YouTube know we're here. Let IG know. Let Facebook, hey, replay. Let everybody know that we're here, and we will certainly appreciate it. But yeah, let's talk about overdose with this next story, Shador. R. Kelly. I know that's a name that makes a lot of people shiver. He is someone who really was undoubtedly one of the most talented musicians. Okay. He sang very well. He marketed himself very well. We know that he's been canceled, for a lot of things he's actually convicted of. But one thing I do want to say, we now see that his team states that they feel like he was overdosed in prison, and they think it was done on purpose. According to his attorneys, they have everything on tape. But according to them, he received more than the dose of his medications. He takes some medications for anxiety and for depression, and they say that he was overdosed. They also state that he had been complaining about leg swelling, leg pain, and his team states that R. Kelly was completely ignored. As it turns out, he was hospitalized for the overdose, and while there, they found out that he actually had blood clots in his legs. And we know that blood clots can be fatal. They can take you out. In the United States, we get about 900,000 patients with blood clots each year with deep venous thrombosis, blood clots in the legs, and 60 to 100,000 pass away because of those blood clots. And so this is the attorney's case, and they're asking for him to kind of get an early release or do some home arrest because they believe his human rights have been taken. But let's play this clip, and then we'll talk more about overdose. We'll talk about blood clots. And I want y'all to please put in the chat, put OD, and then put some symptoms of overdose, and then also put DVT and put some warning symptoms for blood clots. So OD, and give me some symptoms for overdose, and then put DVT, give me some symptoms for blood clots, and we'll go over that and the importance of recognizing these symptoms. All right.
We turn now to explosive allegations from disgraced R&B singer R. Kelly. He claims there was a plot to kill him in prison. This morning, a new push to release R. Kelly from prison amid allegations the disgraced singer was poisoned behind bars. Hot and fresh out the kitchen. Newly filed court documents claim Kelly was given a near-fatal dose of medications in solitary confinement. His lawyers claiming a combination of anxiety and sleeping pills caused the 58-year-old to collapse in his cell before being rushed to the hospital. The filing also claims, despite doctors saying Kelly needed surgery for blood clots, he was sent back to jail. His attorney accusing prison officials of a sinister plot. These people did overdose him. They did leave him with blood clots in his lungs, and they did it within days of his exposure of a plan to kill him set forth by Bureau of Prisons officials.
The reason is that Mr. Kelly was about to expose some facts that would be extremely inflammatory and damaging to the Bureau of Prisons.
It's really something. And yes, he is definitely disgraced. We do operate with human rights, right? So being in prison is his punishment. If it's true with what his attorneys are saying, and we'll wait and we'll let the legal process go on, then it's certainly not the responsibility of the prison workers to end him, okay, or to take him out. So we'll wait and we'll see. But meanwhile, as we always do here on Medical Mondays and Health Headlines, we will talk about the medical aspects of it. Okay. So anxiety medicines, sleep medicines, we know that some of these medicines can clearly, sleep medicines will make you sleepy, right? And so you can imagine if overdose, you can actually sleep and never wake up. That's an issue. There are also reports that he was in solitary confinement, meaning that he probably was relatively sedentary, right? And we know that can put you at risk for blood clots. So I'll get into this explanation, but did anyone in our chat have any comments about overdose symptoms or DVT, blood clot symptoms?
Yes, they did. So TS chimed in about overdose.
Hi, TS.
TS says nausea, emesis, falling asleep, and unable to move.
Absolutely. So you can have nausea, you can have vomiting, and you can go into a deep unconsciousness to the point where even if someone shakes you or pinches you or gives you a painful stimulus, you might not wake up. So definitely just kind of one of the general emergency warning signs of overdose. And if you see this again, don't try to talk yourself out of it and say, oh, maybe they're just sleeping hard. You know the difference in someone sleeping versus being unconscious and unable to wake up. And if you see that you can't wake them up, please call 911. Okay.
Huge. Hello.
Hi, Huge.
For DVT or blood clot, says extreme pain in the immediate area of concern.
Absolutely. So if you have a blood clot in the leg, one of the deep venous areas, and the legs are very common. So either in like the groin, okay, you can have a deep venous thrombosis, or in the popliteal region, meaning like behind the knee in the lower leg, and you can get pain there. Okay. So you can get severe pain. Anyone else put any symptoms?
Yes. Paula says,
hi, Paula.
What's the pain in the leg, and then warm or touch to the swelling. And
very good. You can have warmth and you can have swelling. So painful. So in the leg, they can be painful, warm, swollen. They can be red. And a real key with the blood clots, though it's possible to have them in two legs at the same time, more often there'll be one leg. And so if you notice you're having swelling in one leg, redness, pain, and not the other, you should be highly suspicious for a blood clot and run, not walk to your doctor or to the ER, because again, blood clots in the legs, DVTs, can be fatal because they can break away and become venous thromboemboli and go to the heart and to the lungs, causing PEs. And it sounds like they described that R. Kelly did have some PEs. Again, this is absolutely life-threatening. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, purple onion.
Hi, purple onion.
Tightening up the calf muscle.
Right, tightening of the calf muscle, and that goes along with the swelling. Very good.
Yep, and then Tara chimed in about overdose.
Hi, Tara.
Small pupils, choking, limp body, or passing out.
Absolutely. And of course, depending on what the medication is or the drug, the overdose symptoms may vary, but you hit on a few really good ones. So the pinpoint pupils, that's a big one. And we see that a lot with narcotic overdose, right? Like with fentanyl, with heroin, things of that nature, Percocets. And normally when you flash a light in someone's eyes, yes, you'll get the pupils will get smaller, but sitting in just bright light, you'll have someone, whether it's bright light or darkness, and they'll have pinpoint pupils. And if so, you should be highly suspicious of a narcotic overdose like fentanyl. And if you have Narcan available, which we know now that Narcan in some places, in some pharmacies, and even in some places where like vending machines, you can get Narcan. That's the antidote to a narcotic overdose, like an opioid overdose. And so you can give someone that, and we've done videos on that. What else did she say? Let's go back to some of the is that Tara?
The Tara, yeah, small pupils.
Okay,
choking,
good.
Limp
Choking.
body.
Okay, choking, like a gurgling sound, choking sound. Okay, difficulty breathing. That's another big one with overdoses. And again, in some opioid overdoses, because it can cause respiratory depression, right? Fentanyl, heroin, Percocet, they can cause respiratory depression. And so they'll get like a gurgling, choking sound. That was good as well. Okay.
Lisa, she mentioned for DVT, shortness of breath.
Very good. If you have a DVT that's broken off and gone to the heart and to the lungs, and it's become a venous thromboembolism, and then you now have a PE or a pulmonary embolism, absolutely you can get shortness of breath. So then going over some of the PE or pulmonary emboli signs, shortness of breath, you can get chest pain, you can get a really fast heart rate, you can get lightheadedness. All of this is when those blood clots have gone from the clot area to the lungs. And if you mess around and get a blood clot that gets stuck kind of somewhere between the heart and the lungs and one of the major vessels, you can get a saddle embolus and sudden death. in most of the cases, although miraculously, I will say I know someone who survived a saddle embolus, and she is one of the few. And if she sees me, she knows who I'm talking about. Okay.
And then one more, Dr. Frita. Gospel fan, hello. Gospel fan says swollen lump in the vein, arteries, and pains.
Yes. So a swollen lump, like wherever the blood clot is, you can get a swollen lump, like possibly behind the knee. So the real point is, if you're suspicious that you even might have one of these issues, an overdose or a blood clot, or if a loved one has them, just have a real low threshold for going ahead and calling 911. In the case of R. Kelly, according to his team, they overdosed him on purpose and ignored blood clots. And if so, there really is a violation of human rights, regardless of how you feel about this disgraced musician, R. Kelly. All right. Make sure, let's see, we got some folks on IG watching. Oh, I did it on Facebook too. I did post some short form content. I posted a reel where I talk about the emergency warning signs of overdose. Okay. So make sure after you finish watching this live, you go back and check that out. And then in my YouTube here, that I do have a video that I've done on DVTs. Okay, so I'll give you more information there. And for those of you who are new, welcome. I am Dr. Frita. I'm an MD, and I have been quadruple board certified. So I'm a board certified nephrologist, meaning I'm a board certified kidney and high blood pressure doctor. I have also been board certified in internal medicine, pediatrics, and obesity medicine. So I like to talk a lot about a lot. And on YouTube here, we have over 874,000 subscribers. I thank you to everyone who supports us here. We're marching towards 900,000, and then we're trying to get to 1 million. So come on, please, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that notification bell so you'll be among the first to know when we release new content. Also, I appreciate all of my IG followers, all of my Facebook followers, to everyone. I definitely appreciate you out there in the replay crew. Make sure you do pop over to YouTube though, because over here you can join our membership where I give members only videos. And very importantly, I do monthly members only live Q&As where I talk to you about all these degrees and certifications, where you have full access to me every month, where you can ask questions about your own health, a loved one's health, things that are going on in the headlines you're not too sure about. And we go back and forth. We drop a link. You can come to the stage if you like, all of those things. So make sure you pop over to YouTube and join the membership. All right. Moving on to our next story. This one is not cheery. It's not bright at all. And it really bothers me. This one is the 31-year-old young registered nurse who was pregnant. And she actually went to the hospital, as we talked about before here on this Medical Monday, because she had severe headaches. Mm-hmm. And they sent her home without even scanning her head, no CT scan, no MRI. And then her fiance found her struggling to breathe, took her to the hospital, and she was pronounced brain dead. The thing is, she was pregnant. Okay, she was about 9 weeks pregnant. And so due to the Georgia heartbeat law, which came about ever since Roe versus Wade was overturned, if you can detect a baby's heartbeat, then you cannot abort the baby. Well, in this case, they weren't trying to abort the baby. They didn't even have the discussion, but the hospital determined that they had to keep this brain dead woman on life support so that she could carry the baby. They didn't ask her fiance. They didn't ask her mother. Those family members and loved ones had no input, but by law, they kept this brain dead woman alive. And now she's given birth. She had an emergency C-section and her son weighed only 1 pound, 13 ounces. And so as we get into this clip, I want you to put in the chat, do you think that it was proper for the hospital to force the family to keep this brain dead woman alive, so that she could carry out the baby? Or do you think that the choice should have been her mother's and or her fiance's? So put that. I'm curious to see where you stand on this.
In a story that has captured nationwide attention.
In just a matter of hours, the family of Adriana Smith, the pregnant woman who has been on a ventilator since February, will say their final goodbyes before she's taken off life support this afternoon. 11 Alive's Karis Belger live for us this morning outside Emory University Hospital in Midtown.
Karis, Adriana's mom spoke exclusively with 11 Alive's Jennifer Bellamy yesterday, really just talking about how the family is navigating such a roller coaster of emotions from the last few months.
And you can just imagine what a challenge it's been for them the last few months. They say that she will be taken off life support at 2 p.m. today. And while they are preparing to grieve her, they're also holding on to the tiniest bit of hope. And that is her newborn baby, Chance. Baby Chance was born just last Friday on June 13th, delivered by emergency C-section at just 25 weeks. And he's now in the NICU. His mother, Adriana Smith, was declared brain dead back in February, 8 weeks into her pregnancy after suffering blood clots in her brain. Adriana's mother, April Newkirk, says today her baby is fighting for a chance at life.
He's fighting. He's in the NIC unit. He's about 1 pound, 13 ounces. And he's expected to be okay. He's just fighting. We just want prayers for him.
Okay.
Today, her family will say goodbye. It's a moment. Adriana's mother, April Newkirk, says that she is struggling to face. She's been dreading it, she says, and she's been by her side for nearly 4 months while also celebrating her 31st birthday this weekend.
Yeah. That story, I have so many mixed emotions about that story. And so I am curious to see what our med heads say here in the chat. And even with that clip, that was Karis Belger, the journalist Karis Belger. And she's interviewed me several times. Oh gosh, I remember she came to the office one time, Shador, and we were talking about syphilis cases, how those were on the rise. And then she's also interviewed me about the heat, and now we're getting right back there, and some of the summer heat and some of the dangers of being overheated and having heat strokes. We've talked about that, but she's really a fabulous journalist. And so definitely check her out. Follow her, Karis Belger, Karys. And Emory Midtown, she mentioned that Adriana Smith, the 31-year-old, now deceased mother, was at Emory Midtown. And of course, Emory Midtown is where my office is. All right. So I'll talk to you about what the definition of being brain dead is, and then I'll get into what, some of the responses, if anyone weighed in, or if they feel that it was proper for the government, essentially, and the hospital to make the decision, or should the mother of the now deceased 31-year-old Adriana, should her mother or her fiance have had a choice in the matter on whether or not their brain dead loved one carried this child who was born at 1 pound, 13 ounces and very premature. Okay, so brain dead, we'll go over it pretty briefly. The definition of being brain dead is when both the brain and the brainstem stop working due to some type of a severe, irreversible injury. And so we know that your brain is responsible for your movements, for your thinking, for your intelligence, for your intelligence, for your problem solving, for your ability to have emotion. And then your brain stem is located right at the base of your brain. It connects the brain to the spinal cord, and it's responsible for a lot of your involuntary life necessary actions, such as your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your breathing. And so to be brain dead, neither your brain nor your brain stem are functioning. And when you are brain dead, you are unconscious and you cannot breathe on your own, plain and simple. If if someone flashes a light in your eyes, your pupils will not react. If they take a reflex hammer to your knee, you will not react. Okay. So it's a medical and a legal term for actually being dead. However, with life support, they can keep your organs going for quite a while, but you will never respond. You will never interact with anyone. You will never have your own complex reflex responses. So she was declared to be brain dead. However, the hospital made the choice, but that's just the definition. Did anyone comment on what they thought as far as should her mom and or her fiance had a choice? Should they have had a choice in whether or not this brain dead young lady carried the baby?
Yes. So Vern.
Hi, Vern. You said Vern?
Vern. I said it should be family's choice.
Okay. Okay. Because interestingly, initially the mother reportedly stated that she was getting medical bills, so now you're getting medical bills for decisions that you had nothing to do with. And then, I pray that this new son, Chance, 1 pound, 13 ounces, born at 25 weeks, I pray that he does well. But we know that the smaller the baby, the higher the chances for neurological difficulties, medical complications, and it will be his father or his grandmother or both who are responsible, and they had no choice in the matter, because someone who is there and brain dead, not moving, not able to eat or swallow, but I'm assuming being fed through a vein, through a central vein, it's not the same. When you're pregnant, you might crave certain things because your baby is telling you, oh, I crave this, I crave that. Okay, I need to eat more iron, I need to eat more calcium, But if you are brain dead, then you're not going to respond with nutrition based on your needs. You're just going to be fed them through the vein. They're just different things. You're not moving around. And so the baby is in a womb that is completely still, as opposed to moving around where, the mom, as a mom, you might be reading to your baby, singing to your baby. It's a different experience for sure. And of course, this is very new. But okay, so you think that there should have been a choice from the people who will now be responsible for the baby. Okay.
Sonia from Facebook. Hello.
Sonia.
Sonia.
Hey, welcome from Facebook.
Sonia says, while there is a heartbeat, I think it's morally right to allow the fetus to grow if it's not going to cause problems for the mother.
Okay. So the mother was already dead. Okay. She was brain dead. And so that was their logic. They didn't, you can't be any more dead than dead. So she was already brain dead. And so your thought is there's a heartbeat, keep her away. Even though, the people who will take care of her, the government made the choice, but the government certainly is not going to take care of the baby. But that heartbeat kind of has you. Okay.
Yeah. Felicia.
Hi, Felicia.
Felicia says, I believe the family should have a choice, and I believe the doctors has the right to do all to save a life. Maybe the doctors did not have time to consult the family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they had time. They were constrained, though, by the law. And that's relatively new, the Georgia heartbeat law, that's since the overturning of Roe versus Wade as far as abortion laws. And so they were kind of torn. You're able to abort a baby if it threatens the life of the mother, but the doctor's point was that the mother was already dead. She was brain dead. And so it really is a complex situation. There's not a black and white answer to it. One thing I will say that Adriana's mom, April Newkirk, she said, I'm not saying, this is what the mom said, and I'm paraphrasing. She said, I'm not saying that I would have said for them to pull her off of life support. She said, but the fact that I didn't even have a choice. That's what she doesn't like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. But I do pray that Chance does well. 1 pound, 13 ounces. That's pretty small.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Can I tell y'all something, to my med heads, to everyone who's listening? My twins, y'all know I talk about them quite often, Avery and Gregory. They're 14 years old now, and that they're healthy, they're thriving. Avery's almost my height. She's like 5'10" and a half. She's almost there. She's not there. Gregory's doing very well. They both do well in sports, activities, great personalities. Well, Gregory was 1 pound, 13 ounces when he was born. Avery was 1 pound, 11 ounces. They were born at 27 weeks. And so I say that to say that when you have a baby who's very small, low birth weight, when you have a baby who is premature, yes, they're at risk for all kinds of things. Possibly they can have brain bleeds. They can have problems with their digestive systems. They can have neurological difficulty walking, comprehending. My babies, by the grace of God, have done very, very well. And so for anyone who hears about Chance's 1 pound, 13 ounce baby, if you think that automatically you're going to count him out, please don't. Because my 1 pound, 13 ounces, my 1 pound, 11 ounces are thriving. I know my story is not everyone's story, but for anyone who is a NICU mom, a NICU parent, an auntie of a NICU baby, and I just hope that my twin story, I hope that gives you a little bit of hope. So just be prayerful. We don't know. Everyone's story is different. We don't always know why, but there is a possibility that you can have thriving babies, even at 1 pound. All right. As we move to this next story, please go ahead and give us a like. Please make sure that you give us a follow. Please share. We are giving you evidence-based, very layered information here. And also, when you finish watching this live, I did do some short form content. You can find it to my folks on Facebook, my folks on IG. And I talked about the definition of what it means to be brain dead. So I'll go into more detail there. So make sure you do check that out as well. All right. Has anyone heard of Vertigo? Put a V in the chat if you've heard of Vertigo, because with the Sean Diddy Combs trial, it had to be put to a halt for a little bit because one of the jurors had vertigo. Okay. And so we'll play this clip and then we'll talk about what vertigo is, some of the signs and symptoms. And for any of you who know what vertigo is, if you know of someone or if you have it, then I want you to comment. Do you think that it's possible for vertigo to really be a reason not to show up for jury duty? Or was that juror just doing too much? Okay. So put a V if you've heard of vertigo. And if you actually have it and you care to share, or if you know of a loved one, share with us if you think that really could be a valid excuse, or was that juror just trying to get a day off of trial, a day off of work? All right, let's play the clip, please.
Mr. Foreman, on docket number 2282 CR 117001, murder and
1 second.
Okay. And I definitely, of course, have had many patients and family members with vertigo. So, you know, I'm going to weigh in as well, like I always do. All right. And if we can't pull that clip, we'll just go ahead and start talking, Shadora.
Vertigo. Prosecutors are expected to wrap up on Friday, which means that Diddy's defense could actually begin next week, and we could see this entire trial wrap up by the 4th of July. Also, People magazine reporting that Diddy is not going to take the stand and testify in his own defense. We're also...
Okay. All right. So does anyone in the chat know what vertigo is, or you've heard of vertigo, or you've experienced vertigo?
Yes, a lot of people chimed in with this one.
Yeah, it's a real one.
Yeah, Huge has
Huge
heard of vertigo.
Okay.
Marina, hello.
Hi, Marina.
She says dizziness.
Yes, it can cause dizziness and cause the room to be spinning, even though you're not. Exactly.
Jack has
Hi,
heard
Jack.
of it or has experienced it. Faye.
Hi, Faye.
Mina.
Hi there, Mina.
Helen says it is up on raise. So when you have vertigo, when you are standing up or raising up.
Okay, so like changing your position, right? If you go from lying down to standing up, you might get that room spinning or rocking from side to side. That's true. Okay.
From IG,
Hey there.
Tracy.
Who is this from IG?
Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
There's
Tracy, listen, check it out. I gave y'all something on IG, and I actually only put this on IG. Listen, I have things that are different on my different social media platforms. But when I was on my way to paddleboarding on Sunday, I did a live in the car because, you know, I was thinking about everything. I wasn't just thinking about brain eating amoebae. I was also thinking about drowning prevention and how in natural waters like lakes, ponds, beaches, actually, that's where most kids who drown, ages 5 to 17, they drown in natural waters. When you think about younger kids ages 1 to 4, drowning is their leading cause of death, and it's usually at home, either in a pool or a bathtub is the second most common place. So check out the live on IG Live that I did just yesterday on Sunday, where I talk about drowning prevention. Very important. And also on the Good Day Atlanta clip, because, you know, I was on our local Fox 5 Atlanta, Good Day Atlanta, doing health headlines with Dr. Frita. I talk about drowning prevention there as well. But hi, welcome from IG. Now, what you say about vertigo?
She says the room can spin and eyes are affected.
Okay, your eyes can be rolling back, the room can spin. Okay. So it sounds like how y'all are describing it, perhaps it really would be a legit reason to not show up to work, right? Anyone else?
Yes. Huge says if it's severe enough, yes, it's possible.
Okay, because huge, it's not even just the room spinning. So definitely you can get dizziness, you can get the room spinning. You can also get nausea and vomiting, right? Some people who have vertigo, someone very close to me who is my age, got diagnosed with vertigo. She had gone to a place. She was, I wonder if she's watching. Look, I'm not going to say your name, but she had nausea. She had vomiting. She couldn't even stand up. She had to call someone to get her. She couldn't drive home. So it really can be debilitating. Okay. So if someone tells you they have vertigo, they don't mean, I'm just a little lightheaded. It can be severe. Okay. All right.
Tara says inner ear imbalance.
Very good. So it's typically an issue with the inner ear, right? And there's a couple different types of vertigo. There's peripheral vertigo, which is the most common one, and there's central vertigo. For the peripheral vertigo, things like benign paroxysmal vertigo. And with that one, if you're lying down and all of a sudden you stand up, or if you're looking somewhere and you turn your head quickly, then that can reproduce the spinning of the room and maybe even nausea and vomiting. Also, sometimes after viral infections, someone can get labyrinthitis, where you can get an inflammation in the inner ear, like you're saying, or you can get Meniere's disease, things of that nature. Okay, that's the most common one. There's another one called central vertigo, not very common, but it can have even more severe symptoms of you being destabilized. And I'm telling y'all, I got family members, and when that vertigo hits, they go to try to grab walls, or they try to just squat and sit down where they are because they know they can fall. They're very unsteady. And there are treatments for vertigo. There's certain medications that can help. But here's something interesting, Shador. There's actually a vestibular physical therapy, okay? A physical therapy that targets your inner ear and some of the crystals and some of the hair-like projections that may be thrown off in your inner ear to try to treat the vertigo. But bottom line, it really can be debilitating, and it really can be enough for you to call off of work. If you're nauseated, vomiting, can't stand, room spinning, you really can't function. So vertigo is a tricky one. It's tricky to treat, unfortunately. We have treatments, but they're not always 100%. So yeah, it can be debilitating.
Yeah,
all right. I like that. Thank y'all for your participation on the Big V, vertigo. All right, let's move into this next story, shall we? Please, y'all, make sure you give us a like as you listen to these stories. Y'all know we're giving you evidence-based medicine. And even after the live, listen, the story keeps on storying. After the live, you can look at the YouTube. Again, we have over 874,000 subscribers. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't. Instagram, Facebook, thank y'all. Make sure you're sharing this and pop on over to YouTube, because you can become a member over here and have more access. We have hundreds of videos. You name it, we have it, just about, on all these health topics. Yes, I'm a board-certified kidney doctor, but I also have videos. I'm not only on kidney disease, I have them on high blood pressure, how to lower blood pressure naturally, diabetes, how to lower your blood sugar naturally. I talk about different cancers: prostate cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer. I talk about obesity. I talk about the GLP-1s. I talk about Ozempic. I talk about Mounjaro, both the pros and the cons. Okay, I give it all to you. I talk about gout, lupus, sickle cell anemia, you name it, just about. I have a video on it, and I give it to you in a way that's easy to understand, so you can watch these videos and you can advocate for yourself and for loved ones. Okay, so if you're going in to see a doctor, look up the video, Dr. Frita, fill in the blank, and more likely than not, I have a video on it. And it'll really empower you. And also make sure, we just released a video this weekend, yesterday. And I like this video a lot. Y'all, I know that's too much. I don't care. If I like a video, that means I have fun doing it. And I usually have explained things in a way that tickles me, and I hope it tickles you while educating you. And in this video, I talk about the silent kidney symptoms that are hiding in your skin. Okay, sometimes your skin can tell the story that you have kidney disease. Okay, so check out that video. I'm really proud of it. And yeah, we just put that one out yesterday. All right, let's get into this last story, Shador, before we get into our 5-minute health check. Right. Now, for this last story, gosh, it's another sad one, Shador. We're talking about the actor Eric Dane. He was on Grey's Anatomy. He's been in many things, but he's only 52 years old. And he's been diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Let's play this clip, and then we'll talk about ALS.
I have one functioning arm. My right side is completely stopped working.
And then your left arm is fine? Yeah.
No, it's going. Yeah, I feel like maybe a few more months, and I won't have my left hand either. It's sobering.
The more recognition that can be brought to this disease, because more and more people, and Diane tomorrow is going to have the doctor talking about things that we can do and the things that we should know more about ALS. But it was just heart-wrenching.
That makes me very sad. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. And so we have someone who is thriving in society, popular, great actor, 52, which is when you're just getting real wise and knowledgeable and kind of heading into, knowing what you want, and it's really time to enjoy life. Well, now, just a year ago, he started getting the symptoms of ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. You might recall, or at least know the name Lou Gehrig, a famous baseball player who developed it. But what ALS is it is an assault on your nerve system or your neurological system. Okay. And it's when your brain and your spinal cord are under attack. And then the messages that should go through your neurons, okay, through those nerve cells from your central nervous system to your muscles, well, the connection starts breaking off. And so eventually it stops altogether and it completely disconnects. And you can get weakness in your hands, your arms, your legs, your neck. You can get fasciculations or like trembling of your tongue. You can have difficulty swallowing. And ultimately, you can pass away from ALS. There are different treatments, to help slow down the progress, but we really don't have a definitive cure, unfortunately, which is why when he was saying, one of his hands he can't feel, the other one is getting there, and he was anticipating when it might be gone. It sounds rather hopeless how he's stating it. And we do have treatments, we do have research, but he is correct in that there's no magic bullet that can treat it for sure. And so he's got the ALS. So please, check it out. There've been different challenges over the years. We certainly have the research, and I pray that one day we get a treatment. But this young man now has ALS, and it is progressing. And just all warm wishes and prayers to him and for anyone who's suffering with this neurologic disorder. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move into our 5-minute health check. For my members, if you have any questions, go ahead and toss those in. We are going to do our members only live Q&A before the month is over. If anyone else has any comments, we'll try to, touch on those real quickly. But meanwhile, let's go ahead and get into this 5-minute health check before we close out Medical Monday.
All right. Kraft Heinz pulls the plug on fake dye colors.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is pretty exciting news, actually. You know that right here on Medical Mondays, we've talked about some of the dyes, like the various red dyes, which have been linked to cancer in some mice research. And we know that a lot of these dyes in other countries, like in European countries, they haven't been allowed in their foods for years. But here in the United States, the leading country and one of the high economic powers, we've allowed dyes in our foods. Well, now the FDA is blocking a lot of dyes, but Kraft Heinz has, even before dyes have been blocked, Kraft Heinz has already started removing certain dyes from their foods. And so now they say that by the year 2027, they're going to have a total removal. And so that's going to make things like Jell-O, like ketchup, it might look a little different, but it will be healthier and it will put us at less risk. And so hats off to Kraft Heinz. They're getting healthier. They're removing dyes.
Is walking the real cure for back pain?
Now that's really curious. Is walking the real cure for back pain? Shador, we know that back pain is one of the number one causes of people going to see their primary care doctor, if not the number one cause. And for anyone who's ever experienced back pain, it can be debilitating, or if you have loved ones, family members, parents, grandparents, you yourself, that back pain can lock up and make it where you can't move, can't walk, can't get out of the bed. So back pain is the real deal. But here's what's interesting. There's actually a study that showed that for people who walked for 100 minutes a day, they had significantly less back pain than those who did not walk. And what's interesting about this study, they looked at over 12,000 people, 12,000 participants, and it didn't matter how fast you walked, okay? But as long as you walked for 100 minutes a day, there was a significant decrease in back pain. So is back pain the real cure? Is walking the real cure for back pain? Well, of course, we know there's more involved, but if regular walking really can decrease your back pain and maybe even prevent you or put off having back surgery, that's really something to watch out for. So y'all, you know that the American Heart Association recommends that most adults exercise with moderate exercise for 150 minutes a week. So that's about 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week. According to this study, 100 minutes a day might decrease your back pain. So check it out. And I'll keep you updated as we get more evidence and do more studies.
All right. Spectator saved coach's life on the soccer field. Would you step in?
Ooh, listen, I want y'all to put a Y for yes if you would have stepped in, and put a N for nah. Let somebody else do it if you're scared. Y for yes if you really think you would have stepped in. N for nah. And let's play this clip.
On GMA with the soccer coach captured on security footage collapsing face down on the turf during a game. Well, Sam is back with the story. And Sam, this morning we're hearing from the coach in the community that really rushed into his aid.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a scary story, but it really does have a pretty good ending.
Yes.
So hang with us. Here we go. From our affiliate in Buffalo, WKVW. It's a quick thinking community when one of their very own collapses and hits the ground. Coach Pillblod had no previous health issues. So in these frightening moments with him face down on the field, the other coach and the families around him jump into action.
It was a terrifying moment at a youth soccer match in upstate New York. Southern Tier football coach Andrew Pillblod suddenly collapsing on the sidelines.
I remember the first halftime. I remember all that perfectly. Everything right up to, and then it's kind of like a light switch.
The coach of the opposing team, Wilson High School's head coach Paul Herman, sprinting in to help.
I realized real quickly, he's in a really bad place. That's when I was like screaming across to, other people to help me.
Soon, help is delivered. Herman was joined by parents, including one who's a nurse, to start giving CPR to Pillblod. Meanwhile, you can see other parents, like School Secretary Claire Simpson, running through the halls to grab an AED, which is a type of defibrillator.
As soon as I heard the word heart, I knew that we had to do something. Yes, I ran my fastest.
Paramedics arrived shortly, transporting Pillblod to a local hospital where he remained for a week. Now, almost 2 weeks later, doctors are still trying to figure out why this happened, especially since he says he has had no previous health.
Wow. She was on that with the AED, going to get the automated electrical defibrillator, which, Shador, you have very good experience with. Because look, what I say, when we had someone who passed out, was unconscious in our office, which has happened more than once. I mean, that's just, I guess, the nature of the beast when you're seeing patients. But Shador, listen, I'm telling y'all, Shador is calm, cool, collected, and she still was. But when I tell you she's a runner, she's a track star, Shador went and made that AED appear, and the patient did well. All right. So as we close out, did anyone say yes, they feel like they would have acted quickly and jumped in and tried to help? And then did anyone, come forth boldly and honest enough to say, nah, they just don't really feel that comfortable? Anyone?
Yeah, so plenty chimed in. Reg says yes.
Hi, Reg. Good work, Reg.
Paula.
Hi, Paula.
Yes. D. Say yes.
Hi, D. Okay. All right, medheads. Good.
And our member, Bryant, say teamwork is key. Teamwork is key. So yes.
That's right. Good. Thank y'all. Now, some of y'all might have been in your minds thinking, nah, get somebody else to do it. And I want to talk to you. Now, it's easy for someone like me to say yes, because I'm in healthcare, but even if you're not in healthcare, we have the Good Samaritan laws. And so you will be protected if you try to help. And so I want you to go, there's different websites. You can go to American Red Cross. You can go to heart.org. You can go to American Heart Association, or just look up CPR, or look up breathless CPR, or hands-only CPR. There's a way where even if you're not certified and you're not comfortable, although I do encourage you to get certified in CPR, but even if you're not, you can do a hands-only CPR, and you do it pretty quickly to like 100 or 120 beats in a minute, and to the tune of Staying Alive. Staying alive. That's how fast you go. Okay. And the other thing is those AEDs, they're not super complicated. You don't have to be a neurophysicist to use them. They're meant for lay people. Okay. They're meant for everyday people. And so don't be afraid. If someone drops and they're unconscious, they're not breathing, they don't have a pulse, you just open up that AED and it tells you, it gives you very clear directions on where to place the pads. And it tells you what to press, when and if they need a shock. You don't have to make the decision on if they need a defibrillation, or if they need a shock. The machine will tell you. But that's my point. It's for lay people. So for those of you who might have been thinking, nah, get somebody else to do it, please, just doing the CPR, getting the AED if someone is unconscious, and of course, calling 911 or getting someone to call 911. You can save a life. You don't have to be a physician. And we have the Good Samaritan law. You won't be punished for trying to save a life. Okay? All right. Well, Shador, that wraps us on up. Do we have any member comments or any must-see comments before we wrap this thing on up?
Yes. So Shrey just asked in regards to the story. She says, there ever a time when chest compressions would do more harm? Of course, I would like to jump in and help, but scared of causing harm.
Got you. Okay, so here's the thing about chest compressions. If the person is breathing, then they have a pulse. So if you're doing it, if someone has just fainted and you're doing chest compressions, then that will be more harm. We're talking about doing chest compressions when someone has no pulse and they're not breathing. If that happens, that person is trying to die. For every 1 minute that they don't get chest compressions or they don't get a shock, their survival goes down by 10%. Okay? For every 1 minute that an unconscious person with no pulse goes without a shock, or you jumping in and doing CPR compressions, for every 1 minute, their survival goes down by 10%. And so if you have someone who's not breathing, who's unconscious, who doesn't have a pulse, then the benefits of you trying to do those chest compressions far outweigh the risk of them not surviving. Okay. And here's the other thing, and this is just the reality for anyone who's out there, any of my nurses, my paramedics, my doctors, you know this. When you do chest compressions the right way, especially if it's in someone who might have a little weak bones or osteoporosis, you might break a chest bone, okay? But the importance is to push and to do the chest compressions accurately because, hey, a broken breastbone will heal, but a heart that has stopped for minutes and minutes and minutes, there's no coming back from that. So it's not always a beautiful, glorious thing. There are risks involved, but just remember what I said. Doing nothing far outweighs the risks of doing chest compression. So err on the side of saving a life. Very good question. That was a real good question.
I do have a question from member Bryant.
Hi. I'm so happy you're a member. What's the question?
Bryant says, at a creatinine level of 1.72, how bad is it to prescribe Bactrim and Cipro together?
Okay. So, here on this channel, what I give is medical information. I can't give you personal medical advice because I haven't done a history and physical. You can definitely come and give you more information on, you'll have access to the live Q&A, or for anyone, I do offer a telehealth concierge service where I can get a full history, and I can do that from anywhere in the world. You can click the link in the bio or go to my one-stop shop, drfrita.com, but I'll answer your question generally, okay? So with a creatinine of 1.7, the level of kidney function will depend on, male, female, age, all of those things. But at 1.7, if you've had a creatinine like that for 3 months or more, then very likely there's a form of CKD, chronic kidney disease. I will say that Bactrim tends to cause creatinines to elevate. Okay, so for my patients in CKD, it's not my first choice, the creatinine. I do give Cipro to patients with CKD, but I make sure I dose it for the level that's appropriate for their kidney function. So in other words, in addition to creatinine, when you look on your MyChart or look at your labs, you will have an eGFR, estimated glomerular filtration rate, which is essentially your percentage of kidney function. Depending on what it is, I'll dose the Cipro appropriately, okay? So versus giving 500 milligrams a couple of times a day, I might give 250 milligrams a couple of times a day or even once a day. And so the Cipro, depending on the kidney function, can be safe. The Bactrim, I will say, typically causes an increase in the creatinine, which reads as a worsening of kidney function. So definitely please consult with your doctor. And if indeed you look at your MyChart and you see that your eGFR is less than 60 milliliters per minute, I would talk to your primary care doctor about a kidney referral, a nephrology referral, and I would talk to that nephrologist about whether or not you should take the Bactrim and Cipro. If you've already been prescribed it at 1.7 or whoever you're talking about, you might not be talking about yourself, but before they take it, I would have them call the doctor who prescribed it and say, hey, I'm concerned about my kidneys and I've been told that Bactrim can make the creatinine worse. I'm concerned about it, and talk to your doctor. Okay. Please talk to your doctor. But that's my medical information that I've just given you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Frita. And then one last question has been asked twice. This is from D. What is the connection between blood pressure and vitamin D deficiency?
Oh, that's interesting. So they're not necessarily directly connected, but there sometimes are associations in people who have different disorders or diseases. There's oftentimes an association, there can be an association, but I'll just talk about them separately. We already know that blood pressure, high blood pressure, is a leading cause of heart disease, of strokes. And in fact, it's the number 2 cause of kidney disease. And for those of you who are new to me, I do have a book on managing blood pressure. It's called Under Pressure, A Guide to Controlling High Blood Pressure, where, yes, I am a board certified MD, board certified in high blood pressure specialty, but I also, in addition to just talking about traditional medicines, I talk about how to manage blood pressure naturally using food as medicine, exercise as medicine, deep breathing as medicine. So make sure you can click the link in the description here to get the book, or go to my one-stop shop, drfrita.com. And so blood pressure is definitely something you want under control. Vitamin D is something that, again, can have associations with things, not necessarily directly blood pressure to my knowledge, but vitamin D is not just a vitamin like we used to think it was. We know that having proper vitamin D allows your gut to absorb calcium properly, and so it can help you to have proper, strong bones. But we also know that vitamin D has a direct effect on your immunity. Okay. And if you look at different diseases, there are many associations of vitamin D, even with the panini, as some people call it, or C19, that virus. There was an association with morbidity and mortality. People who had very low vitamin Ds, there was a correlation with the people who passed away from C19, the virus, back when we had lockdown, and those with low vitamin D, definitely with immunity. So I'm trying to think, do I have a video on vitamin D? I definitely have one on C19. I have a million videos on blood pressure, but yeah, no direct cause effect to my knowledge, but definitely associations with low vitamin D and many disorders.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Frita.
All right. Well, thank y'all. And thank you, Shador, for being a wonderful co-host. And listen, I'll see y'all again next Monday, same bat time, same bat place. I am Dr. Frita. Be looking, because I am going to post my appearance I just had on Saturday, Good Day Atlanta, where I talked about things in my segment, Health Headlines with Dr. Frita. And stay tuned, because any other things I have upcoming, I'll be posting them like for my IG watchers, my Facebook watchers, TikTok. Y'all will get it first. But again, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you for making Monday your healthiest day of the week.